Okay, so let's make a duo. No, a trio, sure, that's better. Let's make them the primary colors, that's always pleasant to look at. The leader, sure, blue fits. He's not gonna be a strict leader though, pretty much the opposite. He's gotta be fun and smart. Well, not exactly smart, I guess witty is a better word. A sidekick with complementary colors is always fun. Probably make him on the younger side and have him cover the areas where the leader can't. Where the leader is witty, let's make this little guy actually intelligent, but not as confident to make the leader kind of a mentor to him. Red. What about a guy that just punches hard as f? You know a character is goated when the literal first thing he does in a franchise that's over 30 years old is something that's still talked about in power scaling debates. What a guy. Knuckles is more like a pawn for most of Sonic 3's story, as in, he quite literally does not much at all aside from laugh at your face. He turns off the energy in Carnival Night and he's so proud of himself too, like, aha, I knew hedgehogs had bad night vision. Little did he know he actually gave Sonic a buff. So what can we glean from Knuckles in Sonic 3 in-game? Honestly, not a lot, but it's a good foundation. He's lighthearted but can put up a good fight, is incredibly resilient, and surprisingly clever. Going over to the Sonic 3 manual, it says that he's the one that put up the constant traps that bug you along the game, painting him as a trickster, which is a very interesting angle for someone that would be later known for his brute strength. His motivation for all of this is very simple. He was fooled by Eggman and his lies. He eventually has a change of heart once the curtain is pulled and helps Sonic reach Sky Sanctuary to set things right. Him being tricked can make him look dumb or naive, but considering that Sonic and Tails did have the emeralds, and Knuckles saw Eggman in a pretty helpless position, he thought he was just helping an unfortunate man. He was never evil, he was simply serving his duty. In fact, doing everything in his power to do so. Plus, with Knuckles living in a floating island all by himself for years in isolation, aside from the flickies, would it be wrong to think that Knuckles has just never been lied to before? My justifying aside, a pretty good showing from the red echidna, so let's see how we move forward.
Now, to restore the master... Not again.
In Adventure 1, we get quite a lot of information on Knuckles and his origins, this being the game where Knuckles' core personality is more well established. For the first time, Knuckles questions his duty, why he was born with this massive weight on his shoulders. He has absolutely no clue why he was chosen by Destiny to guard the Master Emerald, moments before Chaos destroyed the emeralds in pieces, kickstarting you into Knuckles' campaign. A small bump in the road is him being tricked by Eggman again, and thus I need to put on my defendant costume again. While this can seem like an unnecessary repeat of what happened in Sonic 3, Knuckles in Sonic Adventure is, in Eggman's own words, in a wild goose chase for these emerald pieces that could be damn near anywhere. So any leads given to him are valuable. Plus, with Knuckles directly stating that he's always guarding the emerald, just like in Sonic 3, we can glean that Knuckles is a very introverted character and still hasn't really figured out social cues. While I'm not a fan of the Knuckles gets tricked thing, in this game it could be reasonably explained. Through Tikal's magical flashbacks, Knuckles is exposed through bits and pieces of the tragedy that fell upon his people, though he doesn't understand all of it. His story ends with Knuckles having a better perspective on his duty as the guardian of this emerald, being at peace at the end of the game. Even if he doesn't understand why he's in this position, he's okay with that.
I may not know the whole story behind this, but perhaps it's better that way. I'm at peace once more.
Tikal, as important of a character she is in this game, is never properly explained. Hell, even in the official game's manual she's never even mentioned. She's pretty obviously a ghost or lingering spirit, but she's never seen after the events of this game. Maybe it has to do something with Chaos himself? We'll unfortunately likely never know unless these games get a remaster or something of the sort. Well hey, we finally found it, a door! Looks like it needs a key though.
Oh, I guess we'll just circle back and...
Hey Knuckles!
What?
You're going to the death chamber. Why? I'm counting on you, buddy. In Adventure 2, we don't get a lot of Knuckles at all. He mostly does his own thing until he eventually meets up with his friends. But his story in itself is pretty much his own completely, though he does contribute in the end, I guess. One thing to note is that he's a bit friendlier here, almost like he's softened up a bit to his friends. That being said, this is a game that starts the Knuckles sidelining, starting with Shadow replacing Knuckles and being Sonic's main rivalry. In Sonic Heroes, Knuckles is much more lighthearted and laid back, where we saw Knuckles being pretty standoffish in the past.
No worries, we've got this one. Come on, tell me you weren't scared. If it wasn't for us, you wouldn't have had a chance.
He's casually cracking jokes and just hanging out, completely forgetting the Master Emerald that he's supposed to be protecting.
But it's so spooky here!
Maybe that's the ghost of Shadow we saw earlier.
Almost making a complete 180 on his duty. I do wonder if he treats it like a 9 to 5, maybe. After that, okay. Well, let's see here. Aside from the spin-offs, so taking away roughly 70% of his appearances, he plays very, very minor roles in the plot. Like in Lost World, where he has like 0 plot relevance alongside Amy. This guy was in Sonic Rush, by the way. Anyone in the audience able to tell me a single line of dialogue of his? No? Yeah, alright. He gets so mad he punches a rock. That's his contribution to the story that has a whole new set of emeralds. While this was all happening, Sonic Boom was a thing. Oh my god, this thing is more than 11 years old. Say what you will about Sonic Boom, I was never a fan of Knuckles here. Like, yeah, sure, Sonic Blue Arms and toilet paper wrappings. The fuck did they feed to Knuckles? He is the stereotypical meathead and almost nothing else. Though it is just an alternative universe, I guess. Somewhere along the way, I feel like we forgot that Knuckles is a pretty smart character and an emotional one too. We see a pretty good deal of maturity from him. We actively see him evolve from Sonic 3 to Sonic Heroes, and how he gradually comes out of his shell, where for the longest time he was almost completely irrelevant. Even in the writers' games, where we have Knuckles reading ancient texts, which is really cool, he does nothing at all for like most of the 2010s. Even in Generations, where everyone is basically a cheerleader, he gets used as a joke and an upskill for Amy. Even in Sonic Forces, where he's a goddamn war general, he gets sidelined almost immediately as soon as Sonic is rescued. And that's how Knuckles was handled for a long time. He was getting some pretty good characterization in the IDW comics, but those don't get nearly as much attention as something like a game or a movie. Oh my god. Say what you want about the Sonic movies, I think they're great. Despite sporting arguably the most childish and cringy iteration of Sonic, not that that's necessarily bad, it also brought out arguably the best version of Knuckles ever put to screen. I want to gush so badly, but let's go in parts. This being kind of an adaptation of the events of Sonic 3 in the way that Knuckles gets tricked, the Master Emerald is introduced, the rivalry between Sonic and Knuckles is introduced, and they even fight for the Master Emerald, and the rug pull when Eggman actually does get his hands on the Emerald and powers the Death Egg robot. I think it's done pretty well, while there being very notable differences between the movie and game canon. For starters, a pretty major difference is that Knuckles actually knows his people. He actually grew up around them. Where in Sonic Adventure, it's implied he had little to no clue about his people aside from the fact that they were nearly extinct. It's an interesting change that gives Knuckles a believable motivator for wanting not only to team up with Eggman, but to also have a grudge against Sonic before knowing him properly, as Sonic was aligned with the Longclaws that fought against the Echidnas. Also, while Knuckles is definitely naive and out of touch in this movie, it's really not subtle how Knuckles kind of doesn't really like Eggman at all, whether it be through active questioning or giving him dirty looks. While he is tricked, it's not like he was oblivious to the red flags. Hell, he even questions why Robotnik didn't bring along Stone, Knuckles himself acknowledging how dedicated Stone is to Robotnik.
Dishonor.
It makes it look less like he's dumb and more like he's so close to connecting the dots. The only places where you could argue where he's treated as a joke is how he interacts with technology. But honestly, those were the only real parts of the movie that made me actively chuckle when they were trying to make me laugh. The main thing that I love about this movie though is that it keeps Knuckles' character consistent with his early characterization while mixing in a little bit of Adventure Knuckles in there. Near the beginning of the movie where Sonic, Blue Justice very badly saves a town and leaves a mess, Tom gives him a talk on responsibility and how the moment to act is not something you choose, but rather something unpredictable that you react to. It chooses you, not the other way around. And later we find out that Knuckles receives the same talk. But unlike Knuckles, Sonic has people around him. He has friends to guide him, where Knuckles received this talk right before losing everything he had, no doubt internalizing it into his responsibility with the Master Emerald. And a part of me can't help but connect this to the games, where Knuckles starts out as an antagonist to Sonic and gets tricked by Eggman because of his isolation and duty, eventually softening up when he finds his own group of friends, something that also happens in the movies. I really enjoyed this movie, and Knuckles was an amazing highlight of it all, but Knuckles fans would be kept well fed by Sonic Frontiers and how it expands on Knuckles' character a fair bit while giving a lot of lore on the Sonic world as a whole, given it took us over 25 years to discover the creators of the most important gems in the entire franchise. The Ancients, at least to me, seem like the closest we'll ever get to seeing what the echidnas were like. Knuckles himself says that they make him remember that he's the sole survivor of his species and how they were both wiped out by similar events.
Ages ago, my people were wiped out by a cataclysm. I know the Coco faced something similar. It reminds me I'm the last echidna, that I'm alone.
Knuckles, through these missions, gets pretty attached to them, with it being revealed that they did inhabit what would later become Angel Island. He feels a need to protect the Coco, even as he knows of their fate and sees how things go down, and it makes him reflect. Oh, and Knuckles has really good playful interactions with Sonic here. The facial expressions are a bit weird, I'll admit, but it's kind of charming in a weird way. He is very well characterized in this game, is all I'm saying. He is really good. Sonic Frontiers did a lot for the writing of both Amy, Tails, and Knuckles, and people pretend that it's like the worst game ever. I've been thinking a bit about where I'd want Knuckles to go next, and I really can't see his character evolve much further than it already has. I just would really like to see more of Knuckles in general. He's already gotten very comfortable with his friends, he's come to terms with his duty and lineage, and despite not being the brightest, he's a solid wall that others can rely on. From his friends in Team Sonic to the Chaotix, even... Dude, I am not fucking watching that. Who is this guy?